Neighbor was stealing water from my supply, so I ruined him. I bought a fixer-upper house in Asia. The previous owners were family friends who sold it cheap since they hadn't lived here for 3 years. It had no gate, just a padlock. First day I moved in. Someone had parked their bike in my garage. I installed a gate that same day. The guy who owned the bike came later and knocked on my gate for 15 minutes, then gave up and left. That's when I knew the neighborhood was going to be a bit sketchy. People kept parking in front of my gate at first, thinking the house was still abandoned. But a no parking sign solved that. Then, last week, while I was showering, I noticed the water pressure was way too low. At the same time, I heard my neighbor's water pump running. This guy lives in a 3-story house and rents the top 2 floors. I remembered the previous owners warning me about him. Apparently, he was mad about them selling the house to me. Now, in my country, you need water pumps to get public water to the roof tanks. I turned my taps off, waited for his pump to shut off, then tested mine again. The pressure was fine. Suspicious. I started testing this every day and noticed a pattern. When his pump ran, my pressure dropped. That's when I realized this guy was siphoning water from my supply. The water bills had been oddly high for the last few years, despite the house being empty. It made sense now. I debated confronting him or calling the cops, but I had a better idea. Water here is super cheap, like $5/month. But it wasn't about the money. It was the entitlement that pissed me off. So I waited until his pump kicked on. Then I shut off my main water valve. See, the tanks in our houses use a valve that senses water level. If the level stays low, the valve tells the pump to keep running until it fills. But with no water coming in, the pump kept running and running. That night at 3 a.m., I heard people in his house freaking out. The power was out, the water was off, and the tenants were pissed. Turns out the constantly running pump overloaded his old wiring and blew the fuse box. The 2 tenants reported him to the police, since in our country landlords must provide power and water. He got slapped with a $500 fine, and both tenants moved out within a couple days. Now the guy has to pay for repairs, refund the security deposits, and can't rent again until everything's fixed. I found out he's moving in with his daughter because he can't afford to live alone anymore. He even came to ask if I turned off my water. I just said, "Oh yeah, I had a leak. Plumber's coming." The look on his face? Priceless. I'm also getting a plumber to check for any remaining pipes leading off my property. So I solved my pressure issue and got rid of a terrible neighbor. Sometimes all it takes is turning off a valve.